Brother, let me ask you something. What if the emotions you've been fighting your whole life, fear, guilt, anger, shame, jealousy, and frustration, weren't actually the problem? What if the problem was this, that you never learned how to listen to them? See, men today don't know what to do with their emotions. They either bury them and pretend they don't exist, or they explode and they let them destroy everything that they've built. And here's the thing, both leave you feeling weaker. Both leave you feeling, like you're failing. But what if I told you that emotions aren't the enemy? They're messengers. They're signals. They're trying to tell you something, and the longer you ignore them, the louder they get until they start running your entire life. In this video, we will look at fear, shame, guilt, anger, jealousy, and frustration. So, hey man, I'm Kyle. I'm a certified master NLP practitioner and a certified master success coach for men who are tired of letting their emotions control them and they're ready to start leading their life from grounded masculinity. And just for you watching this, I have put free resources in the description below for you to get for yourself and to start making the change as well as the opportunity to work with me. And when would now be a good time to do that? Leave a comment also, and let's get a conversation started, a real conversation. So, first off, like I really thought about doing this in a two-part video, but I know this is, too important to break up into separate videos. So this is going to be one long one. And if you stay with me until the end, I promise it'll be worth it for you. So let's break down these six emotions that are controlling you. We will look at each one in depth, one by one, and I'll show you how these emotions, if left unchecked, will wreck you. And if you learn to listen, they'll rebuild you. So let's start with fear, right? Fear says your biggest strength is hiding behind me. Look closer. But most men never look closer. The second fear shows up, they shut down, they retreat, they distract themselves with, their phone, Netflix, the gym, a drink, really anything to avoid the truth that is staring them in the face. And here's what fear really costs you. Fear is why you still haven't had that honest conversation with your woman, the one where you tell her, what's really going on inside of you. Instead, you stay silent, hoping that the distance will just, close on its own. Fear is why you're still clocking into that job that drained your soul, telling yourself, at least it's safe, at least it pays the bills. When deep down, you know you were built for more. Fear is why you've been carrying around that dream, the business, the book, the body, the vision of the man you want to be, and you've been talking about it for years, but you haven't even moved an inch. And here's the truth. Fear doesn't mean you're weak. Fear means that you're standing at the doorway of your power. But every time you back down, every time you avoid it, every time you say, tomorrow or when I'm ready, you don't just lose the opportunity, you reinforce the belief that you're not enough. And that's where it gets worse. Fear left unchecked just doesn't stay fear. Fear turns into shame because after years of backing down, you don't just say, I'm scared. You start saying, maybe I'm not capable. Maybe I'll never be that man. You begin to identify with your fear. It becomes a part of who you believe that you actually are. And once that happens, brother, you're not just living with fear, you're living really in a prison of shame. And shame just doesn't whisper you're scared. Shame whispers you're broken, whispers you're weak, whispers you'll never change. That's how fear robs men of their lives. Not because fear is powerful, but because avoiding it convinces you that you're powerless. Think of it like this, right? Fear is the locked door, right? But the key has always been in your hand. Every time you run away, you're not running from the door. You're running from the man you could become if you had the courage to put the key in the lock, unlock it, and open the door. Now, let's go deeper into shame. Shame says, I need love and acceptance. Stop rejecting me. Shame is brutal because it doesn't say you did something wrong. That's guilt. Guilt can actually be useful, at times. It points out when your behavior is out of alignment. But shame doesn't attack what you did. It attacks who you are. Shame says you are wrong. You are broken. You are not enough. And once you believe that, you start living like it. You hide opportunities because you think you don't deserve them. You sabotage relationships because you don't trust anyone could actually love you if they knew the real you. You wear masks and you fake confidence, keeping people at arm's length because you're terrified that if they saw the real you, they'd reject you. And here's the kicker: when shame is running the show, you can't win. Even when things go right, shame will twist it. You'll land the job. Shame says, yeah, but they'll figure out that you're a fraud. Your woman compliments you. Shame says she doesn't mean it. She's just saying that. You progress at the gym. Shame says it's still not enough. It's the inner voice that takes every win and poisons it before you can even celebrate it and feel it. And here's where shame gets deadly. Combine it with frustration and you spiral. Because now you're not just ashamed, you're frustrated that you can't escape the cycle. You tell yourself, I'm going to change this. This time it will be different. Then the old habits just pull you back in. And shame whispers, see, I told you you'll never change. That voice grows louder every time you fail until eventually you just stop trying. And brother, let's be real, shame is the root of so many addictions in men's lives. Pornography, because it gives you fake intimacy without the risk of rejection. Alcohol, because it numbs the voice long enough to forget. Overworking, because if you can just produce enough, maybe you'll finally feel worthy. But here's the tragedy: none of it fixes the wound, it just deepens it. Because when the buzz fades, when the screen goes black, when the applause stops, shame is still there. And now it's louder than ever. And shame just doesn't wound you, it robs your woman, your kids, your brothers of the real you. It keeps you locked in isolation. It convinces you that you're unworthy of the very love and respect you crave. That's why shame is so dangerous. Because unlike fear, anger, or guilt, shame doesn't drive you to action. It paralyzes you. It convinces you that change isn't even possible. It says this is just who you are: broken, unworthy, irredeemable. But listen closely to me. Shame is a liar. It's not your truth. It's a story. And stories can be rewritten, but only if you stop hiding, stop numbing from them, and start facing it. Now let's talk about guilt. So guilt says that you're acting against your values. You need to correct your course. Brother, guilt is that gut punch, you feel when you break your own word. You told yourself you wouldn't drink tonight and you did. You promised your kids you'd be at the game and you missed it. You said you'd stop lying to your woman and then you hid the truth again. That's guilt. And here's what you need to hear. Guilt is not a punishment. It's a compass. It's the part of you that says, "Hey man, you're off track. Get back to who you said you'd be." But most men don't use it as a compass. They ignore it. They bury it. They numb it with, any kind of distraction. You feel guilty, so you open another beer. You feel guilty, so you scroll social media. You feel guilty, so you double down at work and grind harder, trying to outrun the weight instead of just facing it. But guilt doesn't go away when you ignore it. It like festers. And when you ignore guilt long enough, it rots and it turns into shame. And here's where the trap gets vicious. Fear avoided turns into shame. Guilt ignored turns into shame. And shame is what makes you hate yourself. Shame whispers, you're not just a man who messed up, you are a mess up. You don't deserve love. You don't deserve success. You don't deserve respect. So instead of guilt being the course correction, it becomes the weight that sinks you. So let me give you an example of this, right? Imagine your car dashboard when the check engine light comes on. That's guilt. It's saying, something's off. Need to fix it. But what do most men do? Slap a piece of tape over the light and keep driving. What happens? The engine eventually, stops working. It blows up. That's shame. And here's the kicker about this. Guilt by itself isn't bad. In fact, guilt is proof that your values are still alive inside of you. It's the sign that you haven't completely given up, that deep down you still know the difference between the man you are and the man you're meant to be. But if you never act on it, if you keep betraying your own word to yourself, guilt becomes the heaviest backpack you will ever carry. And eventually, you'll even stop trying to lift it. That's why so many men walk around, heavy and drained and defeated, not because they don't know what to do, but because they've been carrying years of ignored guilt that's really calcified into shame. So here's the choice. You can keep ignoring it, let it rot you from the inside out, or you can finally look at guilt as the compass it's meant to be. It's a signal, not a sentence. So the next one we'll look at is anger, right? So anger says something's wrong here, fix it. But the problem most men, they never fix it. They either stuff it down until they're numb or they explode and destroy everything around them. Think about it. How many men hit their kids, or their wives out of anger issues? How many men blow up at their boss or in a meeting and then suddenly their career is gone? How many men don't explode outwardly, but instead they implode inward, turning anger into stress, which turns into ulcers, high blood pressure, heart problems, a multitude of other health conditions. And then when they wonder why they feel exhausted, sick, and broken, like, brother, listen to me. Anger is not the enemy. Anger is energy. Anger is fire. And fire has two outcomes. It can burn down your house or it can forge steel. The difference is whether you know how to regulate it and really direct it. Because here's what most men get trapped in. Anger doesn't show up alone. It comes, coupled with shame. And anger and shame together is lethal. Because when a man feels ashamed of himself but doesn't know how to face it, the anger has nowhere to go, you know? So it has to go somewhere. So what happens? He lashes out. He blames his woman. He blames his boss. He blames society. He blames the world. And deep down, it's not about any of them. It's about the war going on inside of himself. That's the man who destroys his marriage. That's the man who loses his job. That's the man who, one day looks in the mirror and doesn't even recognize himself anymore. And here's the part that nobody tells you about, but I'll say it to you. Anger and shame combined often turn into addiction. Because when you're ashamed of who you are, but furious about it, you'll do anything to escape that war inside. So you reach out for, alcohol, pornography, weed, gambling, whatever numbs the fire, but it all does the same. The shame is louder than what it ever was when the high wears off. Now, let me give you the truth about anger. Anger is simply a boundary detector, right? It's the alarm system that says, it's the alarm system that says something I value is being crossed, right? That's that's not bad. That's not weakness. That's, not something evil. It's a signal. It's a compass, and it's basically like it's your map. But when you ignore it, it mutates. It becomes destruction. Think of it like this, right? A blacksmith uses fire to shape steel. The same fire in the wrong hands can burn down an entire city. The fire didn't change, the handler did. And brother, you've been handling your anger like a boy, not a man. Either you've been running from it or exploding with it. But here's the hope, right? Anger, when mastered, becomes powerful. It gives you clarity. It fuels your action. It forges resilience. The problem isn't that you feel anger. The problem is that you've never been taught how to hold it, how to really channel it and turn it into leadership. And if you don't, if you keep living with unmanaged anger, it'll cost you everything. Your relationships, your career, your health, and eventually your self-respect. But if you do, if you learn how to, you know, stand steady in your anger, breathe through it, and use it as a signal instead of a weapon, that's that's when your woman feels safe again. That's when your kids respect you. That's when you can look in the mirror and actually trust yourself. Now let's look at jealousy, right? Jealousy says that that's what you really want. Stop pretending that you don't, right? We've all felt it. You see a man with the body that you want, with a career that you want, with the respect that you want, with the woman that you want, and instantly you feel that sting in your chest. But here's the trap. Instead of using jealousy as fuel, most men bury it under anger, sarcasm, or judgment. You see the guy crushing it, and you mutter to yourself, he probably cheated his way there. She only likes him because he's rich. That dude just got lucky. No, brother. That's not truth. That's your jealousy disguising itself, as contempt. That's your fear dressing up as superiority. Because jealousy isn't evil. It's a mirror. It's showing you, oh my God, this is so easy, right? It's showing you exactly what you want, but you're too scared to claim it. It's saying, wake up. You want this too. Stop pretending that you don't. But here's the pain point that you really need to hear. Jealousy combined with shame, that's just poison, you know? Because instead of moving toward the life you want, you start telling yourself, I'll never be that guy. I don't have what it takes. It's too late for me. And once you believe that, you don't just feel jealous, you feel bitter. And bitterness, man, that's the slow death of masculinity. Think about it, right? Bitterness turns you into the man who scrolls Instagram in silence, secretly hating everyone who looks happy. Bitterness makes you sarcastic with your woman when she compliments another man. Bitterness makes you resent your friends when they succeed instead of celebrating them. And really bitterness rots you from the inside out. It doesn't just kill your ambition, it kills your relationships. Because nobody, not your woman, not your kids, not your brothers, wants to follow a man who's bitter at the world. Now, let's go deeper into jealousy, okay? So jealousy, if left unchecked, also ties into your fear. You fear that you can't have what you see, so you make excuses for why you shouldn't even try. And jealousy with fear doesn't just lead to bitterness, it also leads to paralysis. You just stop moving altogether, you stop trying, you keep yourself small. But jealousy can either be, your prison or your compass. When you feel jealousy, it's not pointing at someone else's life, it's pointing at your unlived life. It's saying, brother, that's your signal. That's what you're hungry for. The problem is that most men never answer it. They just drown it in judgment, excuses, or, whatever numbing habit they have. And in doing so, they also bury their potential. But the man who wins, they transmute jealousy into fuel. They stop asking, why him? And start asking, why not me? That's the shift. That's where jealousy becomes power. Because the truth is, jealousy isn't just showing you what someone else has, it's showing you what's waiting inside of you. The question is, are you going to keep resenting it or are you going to rise to meet it? And finally, let's look at frustration. So, I deal with a lot of frustration in men, right? And frustration says that you're stuck in a loop. Try a different approach. But here's the problem with that. Most men don't listen. They feel the frustration rising, but instead of stepping back and reevaluating, they double down on the same broken strategy. They push harder at the wrong thing. They keep using the same approach, hoping this time it will, magically work. That's the definition of insanity. I'm sure you've heard this before. Doing doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome, that's insanity, right? Think about it. You've had the same argument with your woman 100 times. The script never changes. She talks, you shut down, she escalates, you explode, then you both go silent. It's the same loop, no resolution. At work, you keep grinding away at the job that drains you, convincing yourself that hard work is the answer, even though deep down, you know you're building someone else's dream, not yours. With money, you've tried, quick fixes, half-baked side hustles, or swiping the credit card to buy yourself relief. But you never sit down and face the system, so the same cycle keeps repeating. And every time it doesn't work, your frustration just multiplies. Here's the real cost of frustration, right? It doesn't just stay inside. It leaks out. You start snapping at your kids over small things. You start resenting your woman just for, asking for connection. You start hating yourself every time you look in the mirror because you know you're still stuck. Frustration is like living in a cage, except, you're the one rattling the bars, yelling at the lock, never realizing the key has been in your pocket the whole time. And frustration mixed with fear is deadly because fear says, don't move forward, you might fail. And frustration says, you're not moving forward, this sucks. Put them together, and what do you get? Paralysis. You're scared to move, you're frustrated you're not moving, so you sit in limbo. And nothing kills a man's soul faster than stagnation. And it gets worse. Frustration mixed with shame. That's when you start thinking, maybe I'm just broken. Maybe I don't deserve better. Frustration mixed with anger. That's when you blow up on the wrong people at the wrong time, burning a bridge that you can't rebuild. Brother, I've seen this many times. Maybe you've lived it. The man who feels like, his life is passing him by, so he becomes bitter and cynical. The man who feels like he's trying everything but nothing's working, so he gives up trying altogether. That's not living. It's not living. Frustration isn't your enemy. Frustration is feedback. It's your soul's way of saying, wake up, this isn't working, try something different. The problem is that most men never, use it as fuel. They let it fester, they let it rot, and eventually it convinces them that they're powerless. But if you're willing to face it, frustration can actually become your turning point because frustration is proof that you still care. It means you haven't gone completely numb. It means a part of you still wants more. The question is, are you going to keep pushing the same broken system until it breaks you? Or are you going to use frustration as the signal to finally change the game? Now, imagine these emotions are stacking on top of each other, right? Just imagine them stacking up. Fear whispers, you're not ready. Don't try it. Don't risk it. So you don't move. You hesitate. You settle. Then guilt comes in and says, see, you broke your own word again. You're out of alignment. Every broken promise that that you have with yourself adds another crack in your self-respect. Shame piles on top of that and it says, it's not just that you did something wrong, you are what's wrong. And now you're not just doubting your actions, you're doubting your worth. And then anger enters the room, and instead of being directed into action, it explodes outwardly, hurting the people you love, destroying trust, or turning inwardly until it poisons your body with stress. And then here comes jealousy. Jealousy looks around at every man who's doing what you wish you were doing, and it whispers that should have been you. But instead of you letting it fuel you, you bury it under excuses and bitterness. And then comes frustration. Oh, oh, frustration. It closes the trap. It tells you you're stuck. Nothing's ever going to change. Might as well give up. Brother, you stack them all together. You just don't have emotions anymore. You've got a system of defeat. Fear keeps you from starting. Shame convinces you that you're broken. Guilt makes you hate yourself for not starting. Anger drives people away. Jealousy eats you alive watching other men win. And frustration convinces you that there's no point of trying. That's the perfect storm. That's how you end up a man who's alive on paper, but dead inside. And this is why so many men today feel defeated. It's why they're depressed, anxious, addicted, and isolated. That's why you scroll Facebook groups and see posts after posts, men saying, I feel lost, I feel empty, I don't know what to do. It's not because men are weak, it's because no one ever taught us how to hear the messages inside these emotions. Fear isn't fear, it's pointing to your growth edge. Fear, you know, fear is really the spot that's pointing you where you need to go. Guilt isn't just punishment, it's your compass. Anger isn't just rage, it's energy waiting to be directed. Shame isn't your truth, it's just a lie you've been carrying. Jealousy isn't proof that you're lacking, it's proof you want more. You know, frustration isn't a dead end, it's a sign it's time to change the strategy. But if you don't learn how to decode them, you'll drown in them. That's why, men stay stuck. That's why they numb out. That's why they go quiet. And brother, listen to me. You're not broken. You're just, you just been playing a game where you were never taught the rules to. And here's the hope. Once you see that combo effect, once you see how these emotions stacked and feed off of each other, you can break the cycle. You can turn fear into fuel. You can turn guilt into guidance. You can turn anger into action. You can turn, shame into self-compassion. You can turn jealousy into drive. And you can turn frustration into a breakthrough. But it won't happen by accident. It takes leadership. It takes guidance. It takes brotherhood. And it starts with the choice to stop running from yourself, you know. But here's really the truth that I want you to hear. Your emotions aren't here to destroy you. They're here to guide you. Fear isn't weakness, it's a compass pointing toward growth. Guilt isn't punishment, it's your soul pulling you back into alignment. Anger isn't evil, it's raw energy waiting to be forged into action. Shame isn't truth, it's a call for compassion, not condemnation. Jealousy isn't poison, it's a mirror showing you the life that you actually crave. And frustration isn't failure, it's feedback that it's time to pivot, right? So I fully believe that there is no failure, there's only feedback, right? When you stop running from these emotions, right? When you stop, and I'm laughing because it's so silly that men, they'd rather run from it instead of learning from it. And the longer they run, the more hurt they're causing themselves and everybody else. And it's really a very simple thing, right? When you stop running from these emotions, when you stop being a prisoner of them, they stop controlling you and they start serving you. But here's what I need you to hear. You can't do this alone because left to your own patterns, you'll always default back to what's familiar. The masks, the numbing, the scrolling, the bottles, the excuses, the whatever, right? Every man who tries to fight this battle alone eventually gets dragged back into his same cycles. That's why you need guidance. That's why you need brotherhood. That's why you need someone in your corner who can see the traps that you can't see. Call you out, on the lies that you've been believing and remind you who you really are. Brother, this is the fork in the road. You've really got, two choices. That's it. And I've spoke about this before. You can keep fighting the messengers and keep battling fear, guilt, shame, anger, jealousy, frustration, and any other emotion you want to throw in there until they run your life and leave you empty. Or maybe you can start listening to them. Start treating them as signals instead of enemies. Start using them as fuel instead of letting them be chains. Because the man you want to be, the man your woman can trust, the man your kids can look up to, and who you can be proud of, brother, he's already inside of you. But he won't show up until you stop hiding. He won't show up until you stop numbing. He won't show up until you actually start leading. And here's the hope, the moment that you decide to stop running from yourself, brother, whoo, everything changes. Your emotions become your teachers. Your pain becomes your power. And the life you thought you'd never have, the life of purpose, respect, intimacy, and freedom, it starts to become real. That's what's waiting for you, but you have to choose it. So, if this landed with you, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it with a fellow brother that might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified whenever I release a new video. I also have free resources below that will help you start rebuilding from the inside out. Tools that work, built for men just like you. And if you're interested in making a lasting change for yourself, I work with men just like you in a private one-on-one container. The application to work with me is in the description, and just know I don't work with everyone. I only work with men who are bold, willing, and seeking. And if you're still here watching this, brother, that's you. So hit subscribe for yourself, grab the tools, and reach out. Give me a follow too on social media, links from the description. Remember, you're not broken, you're becoming. I'll see you on the next video. Stay strong, brother.